you murderphoniacs. This is your host, Tony Ciaglia, the serial killer whisperer. Welcome to the second special edition series of Murder Phone, where we will be covering the I-70 killings inside the investigation. That sounded pretty hardcore there, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, inside the investigation.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me introduce really quick the man I love more than anyone else in this world, my dad, Al Ciaglia, a.k.a. the Coxman. We are excited to have a special guest here with us today, everybody. He is the 1977 Stratomatic Baseball World Champion. Woo-hoo. And also had someone play him. And also had somebody play him in the Hollywood blockbuster movie Friday Night Lights. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Great movie.
He recently retired to play really bad golf.
I've mastered it too.
Yeah.
Haven't we all?
Yo, I almost forgot. He spent his career as a news reporter and producer for CBS affiliate KMOV in St. Louis. In 1992, he covered an unusual murder in nearby St. Charles, Missouri. That turned out to be the first of the I-70 killings. At the time, he had no idea this would become part of his life. He joined a cold case task force. That's awesome.
Yes.
Bob, that's really awesome. That was in 2021 and has recently authored a book, and this is also awesome, titled Dead End: Inside the Hunt for the I-70 Killer. It's my honor to introduce Mr. Bob Ciphers. Welcome to Murder Phone, Bob.
Thank you very much. Very nice.
Thank you for being here. Awesome.
I will say the guy that played and the Friday Night Lights, though, where the guy took a shot at me, I'm announcing the Permian football games. It was a bald-headed, big old fat guy. I guess Brad Pitt wasn't available that day. And I'm still banking on that 1977 Stratomatic championship. It's 50 years old, but I'm hanging in there with it.
You're still,
Yeah.
you still playing?
The cards are in my basement somewhere. It's been a long time.
Yeah. That's great, though. Bob, what I'm going to do, because I told you a little bit about this, but I swear this has got to be destiny. And if you'll let me explain. 1992 is when the I-70 killing started. 1992 is the year that Tony was run over with a jet ski and spent 40 days in a coma. The traumatic brain injury that he suffered that day is why he started his hobby, which led to the book, The Serial Killer Whisperer, which was written about him and his injury and what he went through. It's been a long road. Then the podcast Murder Phone started because of the book. So the podcast connected us with two fans that had information about the I-70 killings. Now, you're Mr. Bob Ciphers, who has been covering the I-70 killings since 1992, is here with us. Tony's book, The Serial Killer Whisperer, came out in January of 2012. Bob's book which is a great one. And I suggest anybody who is a true crime fan, or anyone for that matter, read this book. It's really good. But anyway, his book, Dead End: Inside the Hunt for the I-70 Serial Killer, came out in January of 2024. Today is a special day for us. July 23rd, 2024. Tony was actually run over by a jet ski right about this time of day, 32 years ago. And you're here.
Thank you.
Yet here we are in the studio. Bob is here with us. We didn't set this up in any way, right, Bob? I mean,
Nope.
The July 23rd thing. So Bob's here in the studio. Tony's here in the studio on the same day and same time that Tony was nearly killed in 1992. And we're here to try and solve a crime that started in 1992. I don't know about you guys. I don't believe in coincidence. I think it's destiny. I really do.
I could just say such tremendous respect on my end for you guys and your family, your wife and his brother, and what he went through, and for the grace of God to be here. And as a father, roughly my age, Al, having watched some of your episodes and the love for your son holds me to a high standard when I look at my children. And I know that Tony knows that. I watch you guys, I can see it. And really, it's an honor for me to be here. I keep you guys in my prayers. I wish you nothing but the best. And I am thrilled to see Tony here.
Thank you.
Enjoying this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. We
It's great
really
to meet you.
appreciate that. And hopefully someday we'll get to meet the whole family. You were telling
That'd
us
be cool.
before we got on here about your boys and your wife, and you're in Normal, Illinois. I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
So we have a lot in common, my friend. And I love
Yes, sir, we do.
And
I know you do.
a lot of people say, how did you do that? And I always say, what? You know, you being a father, you understand. You know, you do.
There's
no thought.
There's no other choice.
Right.
What's the other choice?
Exactly. That's
You love
exactly
him to
right.
death.
Yeah. Anything for him. So, Bob, you know, we're here. You're an expert on this case. You've been doing it. God bless you. You've been doing it for 32 years. And your book is great. We just did a summation last week, the best we could, on the killings, you know, and that's not our bag, the internet, but, you know, we had to look stuff up on the internet to just give the listeners a little bit of a tutorial as to, you know, what we were going to be talking about today. But now we have an expert here, so why don't you just get into the ins and outs of what you've done, seen, and who you've talked to, and then along the line we'll jump in and ask you some questions if we can, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes, sir. So for me, it all started on a May day in 1992. I'm working in the newsroom in St. Louis, and the Cardinals are in the background playing the Padres on a beautiful day on the West Coast. And I hear on the police scanner of a homicide call, which in a city the size of St. Louis is no big deal. You have a couple hundred a year. But then I heard the location. It was at a brand new crowded shopping center in a nice suburban area in the middle of the afternoon. I knew it'd be a big public scene, and it was just not normal. That's not where, you know, if you're going to kill somebody, you don't do it in the middle of the daylight on a Sunday afternoon in front of hundreds of shoppers at a brand new area. So I grabbed a photographer and said, let's go check this out. It might be something. And I get out there, and sure enough, there's hundreds of people gathered around. There's the yellow crime scene tape, which is the case at every homicide scene. And I waited out. I figured it was a robbery gone bad until I found a police officer who I knew, and I pulled him to the side and said, what do we got here, Rob? You know, and he says, it's a young girl. And she was working alone. I said, that's terrible. I said, is it a robbery? No, they didn't take anything. Sexual assault? Did he rape her? No, he never touched her. Family, friends, angry boyfriend. What do we have here? No, none of that. I said, well, what's left? And we get a shrug of the shoulders, like, no idea. Well, then days went by. This is back in the 90s, before the internet was really going big and before police departments could communicate. There had already been similar murders in Indianapolis, Wichita, and Terre Haute. Nancy Kitzmiller, my case, was the fourth of 5 scenes. Nobody knew in Indianapolis what was happening in Wichita or Terre. No, there was no communication. Well, then we got the ballistics results from my homicide scene in St. Charles a couple of weeks later, and I get a phone call from the cops. Hey, Bob, can you come out? Let's meet for lunch. We're going to have something here. And I go to meet the police department, my source, and he says, we're going to have a news conference in a couple hours. You guys can carry it. We're going to announce that this is a serial killer. And he could have floored me at that point. And he said, we've learned there have been similar homicides in Indy, with Terre Haute, and Wichita. And we're going to release it. And I said, well, how do you know? Did he take money there? No. Did he rape? No. What's the motive? There is none. How do you tie them together? The gun, he says, now listen, he said the gun he used was the most ridiculous gun in the world. It was a German World War I Navy target pistol called an Irma Werke that doesn't even barely function. It'd be the last gun in the world anybody would kill somebody with. And this guy is traveling the country killing women with it at random. But the police officers, I said, wow, that's great. Once we get that gun out, that might help solve the case. Well, they didn't want to release the gun information. They just wanted to go with a serial killer. And I felt like journalistically, I kind of lobbied with them for a couple of weeks that, you ought to get that information out there. This is important to the public. Somebody's going to recognize this gun. And they had a lot of debate, and it wasn't because of me. There was people on both sides of the issue trying to decide if they should release the gun or keep it close to the investigation. I was not going to burn my police source and release anything. My bosses were pressuring me. They knew I had something, but my lips were sealed. They finally decided to release the info about the gun, and the killing stopped. And although we weren't solving cases, we felt like, okay, well, at least he stopped. Now, right then, he really hadn't stopped. He'd gone to Raytown by Kansas City, but we had not heard of that yet. So we thought they had stopped, and they hadn't. And a year goes by, and they start again in Texas. I was always interested. He had nothing. It went cold for 30 years. And then I get a phone call in 2021, new police officials now, and Bob, I was writing long form cold case stories for the websites, and they called and said, hey, we're going to get the band back together. We're going to launch a task force. We're going to bring in all the retired cops from all these cities. We're going to get all the new cops that have been handed down this case. We're going to get every cop that has touched this file. We're bringing in new DNA experts. We're bringing in FBI, ATF, profilers. We're going to take one last final crack at this case.
Wow.
And can you come along and tell our stories?
Hey, Bob.
Go ahead.
The Blues Brothers, we're on a mission from God, right? You're bringing the band back together.
Yes. Yes, they were.
That's great.
And they said, can you come along and tell our stories?
I love that they never gave up.
The police didn't want just one story on the news and be done with it. We're getting a task force. They wanted something much more thorough. So I traveled the country with them to all the crime scenes, met all the police departments, all the people handling the cases over time, all the victims, families left behind, any eyewitnesses. And it was remarkable. In the news business, just trying to do one generic story one day and get somebody on the phone and say, can I come and interview you? Will you talk to me? You don't always get a yes. You get a lot of no's before you get a yes. I picked up the phone and called these people cold from around the country. They didn't know me, and nobody said no. Everybody met with me, every police officer, every victim's family, relatives, witnesses, friends.
Wow.
They all wanted the same. This is 30 years later. It was really remarkable.
That
And
is.
so I traveled the country, and we put together maybe 25 stories on our website. And then we knew we had something pretty good, put some YouTube videos together. I had a good crew with me for producers and photographers. It wasn't just Bob. And we won the Edward R. Murrow Award for
Congratulations.
investigative news coverage.
That's awesome.
Really,
That is awesome.
it's about as good as you can get.
Yes.
And, then I retired. And my goal in retirement, besides the bad golf that you've alluded to and watching the Ducks on my son, I knew I could write, and I wanted to write. The only thing on my bucket list on retirement was I wanted to go to the Holy Land. I'm a devout Christian. I wanted to pursue my faith, and I wanted to write some Christian novels. And
God bless
I
you.
did.
Yeah. Did you go?
Nobody buys those. They don't sell. They just sit on. They sit on Amazon. But I did. I went to the Holy Land, and as soon as I got back, the bombs started dropping. It was like unbelievable. But I wrote some Christian novels. But
That's amazing.
then the police saw that I was writing the Christian novels, and they said, "Hey, the task force is done. We're done. We've done all we can do right now. Is there a chance you could write something that could be in bookstores or on library shelves that might sit there forever?" In case somebody comes along and reads it and picks up a nugget and picks up the phone and calls police. And Tony and Al, I tell everybody this on interviews and podcasts. How cool would it be for Murder Phone if one of your phoniacs
Yeah.
picked up this book, saw something, made the phone call and called police, and there's a news conference in Quantico to arrest this turd, is a nice word for what Tony might say. And
I know he listens to
the FBI is standing up there saying we could not have done this without the people who were watching Murder Phone. How cool would that be?
That'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
So-
Yeah.
Yes.
My hope is that somebody reads the book. I'd give the book away on street corners for free if they'd let me. I don't, for whatever I'd make on this book, for the amount of time and effort I put into it, it's like a penny an hour. That's the last thing on my mind. But for me to have a chance to be involved in something that really might make a difference in this world, what a thrill that would be.
For sure.
For sure. That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bob,
Wow.
just for that, because we're devout Christians too. And you know the story about Tony, right? His out-of-body experience and how he had a choice to come back. So would you give yourself a plug? Because I didn't realize that you had written some Christian books. We have a lot of good Christians out there that, I don't know, they listen to us because we get a little crazy, but they do. So what are your books? Give us the titles.
What interests me in Christian novels is the first one is called The Final Hours, and the second one is called Hello, Luke, I'm Mary. What interests me is topics in the Bible that I just don't find an answer for. For example, my first book, The Final Hours, the gospel writers all write, we know everything about that final week. Wednesday, we're coming into the temple. Thursday's the Last Supper. Friday's the crucifixion. Sunday's the resurrection. Nowhere in the Bible by any of the gospel writers who detailed every single day and event of Jesus' life is anything about Saturday. Not one word from one of them. And I reached out to a lot of holy religious people around the country. Even in the Holy Land, I would reach out to look for what happened on Saturday. Why is there no information? And the answer I would get was, oh, Bob, well, Saturday was the Sabbath. They were resting. You know what? These people just saw their Savior crucified on a cross the day before. They knew that the Pharisees and the Romans were coming after them next. I just don't believe they were sitting back having a cold one, taking the day off on the Sabbath. They may have been on previous Sabbaths, but they weren't on that one. They were scared to death. Something had to happen. Now, I think the best thing I've ever written is Hello, Luke, I'm Mary. You get the four gospel writers, John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John was right there detailing everything. Matthew was right there writing everything. Mark's a friend of Peter's who was right there writing everything. Luke was not there. Luke was not there at the time of Jesus. He doesn't pop up for 50 years AD. He never met Jesus. He didn't live at the time. So why among the four gospel writers are all the best stories in Luke? On Christmas Eve, when you hear the manger story in church, Luke's the only one that's got that. The only story of Jesus' life being left behind at the temple when he was 12 years old, that's only in Luke. Luke's got like 50 to 60 stories that the other gospel writers don't have. Where are these coming from? And to me, the answer could only be one place, and that's in the title of my book. Hello, Luke, I'm Mary. Luke could have only got that information from Mary. So can I put Luke with Mary in a time frame? There are two towns that claim where Mary died. One's Jerusalem, the other one is in Turkey, Ephesus. Well, we know on the cross, Jesus said to John, take care of your mother. That's Mary. John went to Ephesus. That's where he built his church. And in 50 AD, when Luke was traveling with Saul Paul, where did they land? In Ephesus. When do people think Mary died? Around 50 AD. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Nobody can prove it. Nobody can disprove it. But when you read the Bible and the Gospel of Luke, there are things there that you will not find anywhere else. And why is that? That's what interests me for my Christian writing. And my publisher says, Bob, you're the only person we can find in the world who writes about Jesus Christ and serial killers. You must be a strange dude.
Well, he hasn't met us.
Yeah.
But that is, you sold me. I'm buying the book.
I will too. That's great.
That's incredible. That really is.
Thank you.
And we need it right now, Bob. So thank you very much. Our world needs it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The profiles. Can you talk a little bit? I know they did 2 profiles. And can you give our readers just a little idea as to what the FBI came up with?
Yeah. In Quantico, it may be the hardest profile they've ever had to come up with because they have nothing. I mean, most murders have a motive. It's either a robbery, a rape, a family member, like we mentioned. There's just no motive here. So they start on, follow the money, follow the personalities. There is nothing here. When he kills Robin Fuldauer in Indianapolis with the first killing, and police are on the scene, investigating, looking for witnesses, talking to family members, seeing who her all of her background, digging into her background, it meant nothing. Because now he's 800 miles away 3 days later, killing in Wichita. So, there's no use investigating family members in Indianapolis because there's no connection to Wichita.
Right.
And there was no connection anywhere. So the profilers had a problem going on immediately in that there was just a lack of motive. You're looking down one trail. These homicide detectives are trained to go down the one trail first. And that trail was nothing. And police will tell you the hardest homicides they have are the random ones that just, seem to go nowhere. They knew why the son of Sam was killing. They knew why Dahmer was chasing gay boys in Milwaukee. They knew why Ted Bundy was chasing sorority girls in Florida. They've got a motive here. Not on the I-70. Even today, 30 years later, if they caught the guy today and they sat him down and asked him why you did this, the only answer could be the thrill of the kill. Well, now, how are you chasing that down? How are you picking somebody off the random streets and say, boy, this looks like the kind of guy that'd go for the thrill of the kill? They just had nothing to go on. And it became impossible for the profilers.
And those guys are sharp.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah. Yeah, they usually nail it. It's amazing. The weapon, and I read in the book, and I know that, and you and I had talked. I know that you had pushed for them to put it out, the Irma Wilkie, and it's really a strange, weird looking gun. I feel that you had to be a collector, or like you had said before, maybe it was passed down throughout the family.
Yeah.
And I can see why they didn't want to let that information out, but as it turned out, I don't think it really mattered. You have any feelings on that as far as Yeah, he used a different weapon. It was a 22 in Texas. But
yeah. The first investigator on the case in Indianapolis, Mike Crook, he's gone to every scene, and he went to Texas after all the scenes in the Midwest, and he believes it is the same guy, just changed the gun. The Vicki Webb situation in Houston, little bit different there, because I had the chance to meet Vicki and spend time with her. I'm not so sure, but I just think the weapon, again, the profiler would say the guy's stupid. Now, he's not stupid if he can get away with murder all these women for 30 years, but you would never pick that gun. And I do think of all the possibilities in the book or things that are out there, I think our best chance is that somebody who reads the book, if they do, somehow knows that name, Irma Werke, that it's so rare, or a gun show collector sold something, it's so rare that might ring a bell somehow to somebody, and that's what could lead to some evidence in this case. It's stupid. It's just as all of his actions are stupid, the gun just magnifies it. And then the bullets on the gun, the shell casings wrapped in the jeweler's rouge. Again, you don't see that at any other crime scene. Murderers just take their 22 and kill somebody and leave. I mean, this guy, there's things here that are just completely out of whack. And as difficult as that makes it for profilers, because they have no explanation for it, those kind of little cookie crumbs, as the profilers say, could eventually lead to victory in this case.
Vicki Webb. I just want to know, when you spoke to her, did she ever try and mimic or imitate his laugh?
No, but she's always said, as we watched the Billy Brossman video and looked at sketches and went over the case on this, she always paused me and said, Bob, I know it sounds silly because he was in my store for 20 minutes, but what I would remember is his voice. That's what I would remember. And we got Vicki back to the FBI labs where they could enhance some of the sound on the Brossman video that we might talk about coming up, where she could hear a little bit of the voice, not a lot. But for her, it was always his voice, which would include, as Tony says, the laugh. Mm-hmm. She didn't mimic it for me, but she made it clear that would be what would tell for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason we bring that up is that is part of the investigation that, we're going to be talking with the two guys that are going to be on next week, the laugh. And they pretty much can mimic this guy's laugh that they think it might be. So I know that she said after she watched the Brossman video, you had said in the book that she couldn't be sure. She wished the voice was a little louder because she'll never forget the voice. And I can imagine, you're laying there shot. You might forget what the guy looks like, but you'll never forget what he sounds like. And that laugh when he clicked the gun, I think she described it as chilling, horrible, and he was a very sick man. Is that pretty much what?
That's it.
So we're thinking, possibly. Oh, and then the video, she couldn't rule him out, right? Didn't she say she was sorry? She couldn't rule him out. 30 years is a long time, but it could be him.
I don't think that Vicki thinks the Brossman shooter is her shooter. And I don't either. Cops are still 50-50. The reason I don't think the I-70 killer is Vicki's attempted killer is because he spent 20 minutes in that store with her. Yeah. The other stores, he appeared to be in and out really quickly. Although we don't know, like you look at the first killing in Indianapolis, the last receipt on the store was like 1:15 and in the cash register, and they didn't find her body until 3 o'clock. And there's a chance that other people may have come in that store in the 2 hours that were in between, or it's a chance he may have spent time with her. But still, Vicki also describes her killer as a jockey type look, tall enough, but a jockey, weathered, as if he'd worked out in the sun, layered skin, as if he'd had a hard life. Whereas the Brosman video and our other witnesses describe a preppy looking man, a well-dressed man, a smooth talking man, kind of opposite of what Vicki's description is. And I think if you look at the opposite descriptions and you look at the time we know he spent in Houston with Vicki compared to the others, I would come down that it may not be the same, but it certainly might be. It's a year later. He's changed guns. He can certainly change other things too.
Yeah.
Whether he is the I-70 killer or not, somebody tried to kill Vicki Webb, and she went into hiding for 30 years because no matter who it is, he doesn't want her out there.
Yeah, that's right. And she spoke with you. I think that says a lot about you, Bob, because I can't imagine. You know,
I made a lot of phone calls.
You had said that.
I made a lot of phone calls and a lot of chuckles in the newsroom, like, hey, Bob's here today again. He's sitting in the corner for the 6th week in a row, just calling people at random, asking them if they were struck by the serial killer. How do you think those calls were going? You can imagine how those calls were going.
Yeah,
and
a lot of clicks. Right?
Boy, when there was the pause on her in that day, and I came back at her a second time when there was a pause on the phone, and she said, yeah, I think you found me. It was like just the chills that went through me, not after all I'd done, but just knowing that I had her on the phone. But that was only half the battle. Now I had to get her to talk to me.
Right.
And, you know, I would understand her apprehension. She wasn't talking to anybody. She didn't want this. And we developed a relationship over time. And like you said, Al, that took some trust. And for her to come out and do this shows some strength. She's incredible. I've met so many people in my career and done so many stories. And when it's all said and done and people want to say, hey, Bob, who did you meet? You know what? I met presidents. I met sports champions. But I met Vicki Webb. And she was one tough cookie. Love her.
Yeah.
She certainly has picked herself up, and from what I've read, she's lived a pretty dynamic life. Considering
and
what happened to her.
after we did the interview, word got out, and People Magazine contacted her, and she did them, and Discovery ID contacted her, and she did them, and some newspapers. I'm thrilled she's out there. I don't need no prize for finding her. I'm thrilled she's out there.
Yeah.
And she wants this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would imagine she does.
Oh, she wants to stare him down in court.
You also had said, and I know you were on the task forces. That was incredible. And I thank you for reaching back out to us that quickly. That was really nice. Mm-hmm. We didn't know, and we wrote it to Ms. Wernicke, and you got right back to us, and we really appreciate that. Because we too have had a lot of hangups over the years. Nobody wants to talk. So thank you. But you had said that you had a couple of witnesses. I think you had said that saw him. Is there anything you can tell us that was that they talked about that was different about this guy? There
were two witnesses. Two witnesses, basically. I would say the first one occurred in Wichita. It was the Cumberbund story, where, as you know, the man calls and says, I'm running late. Can you stay open a little bit past 6? I got to get a Cumberbund for a wedding. They do. And when the man walks into the store, the killer beat him in by 5 minutes and killed 2 people. And so the Cumberbund man is the first witness. But he waited an hour before calling. He went through a life-changing experience. He was in a panic. He has a description. He can describe the facial features. He can describe what he saw for the gun. But years later, he's not really a reliable witness because this has had such an effect on his life. emotionally. The police have said basically, Bob, that's not going to help you. Stay away from there. The other witness is Tim Hickman in Raytown at the last scene where Sarah Blessing was killed. Tim's in his video store, and Sarah's store is right next to him. And the I-70 killer comes right into Tim's window and is looking around, and he sees a man in there, Tim, and Tim's staring right back at him. And so the killer leaves, and 30 seconds later, Tim hears pop, 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 runs outside and sees Sarah laying in a pool of blood, and sees the same man who was looking in his window running up the hill to get away. And, I went that's a big hill. Both me and the police detective there, Chris Shroud, we said, you want to have a race up that hill? And neither one of us wanted it. And that's where he ran to. So Tim saw him right in his window, stared at him, and he's got that memory for 30 years. But again, that scene simplifies, where's the getaway vehicle here? People say, well, maybe he was probably a truck driver, a semi-truck driver that went from Indianapolis to Wichita in 3 days. Where's he parking the rig at the little Payless shoe store with like 4 spots in front? You know, that Payless shoe store in Indianapolis is connected to a Speedway gas station. Speedway gas station's packed with people there all day, all afternoon. He's killing somebody at the store connected to it in the middle of the daylight. How's he getting away? There's no semi-tractor trailer there. Police are thinking he may have pulled up, put gas in his car, walked next door, killed her, paid for the gas, and left. You wouldn't notice anything unusual. But you can't get away in Indianapolis. And Terre Haute, the little Sylvia's store where Mick McCown was killed, is a little teeny shop on a busy street. There's no place to park a large vehicle there. It's impossible. And St. Louis, the store's got a golf course behind it. He couldn't have fled on foot from behind. He had to walk in and walk out front doors and find a way to get away. But in in Raytown, we know he didn't park a car in that parking lot and get away. He ran up a hill that went to nowhere. So again,
wow,
doesn't make any sense. If you're going to kill somebody, aren't you going to have a way out?
Yeah, you would think.
He didn't have one.
Kind of like a ghost.
Yeah, you wonder how he got out. And there's it's just so weird. Like you said, there's no motive. There's no motive. There's no rape. There's no robbery.
No motive. Goofy gun. No motive. Goofy gun. No getaway vehicle. Stops for a year. Starts again. Maybe. You know, the detectives. So much respect for these police officers as they started working on this, and I put this in the book. They tracked down 65,000 people that either had hotel rooms in these towns for those days or were at campsites or had gone through toll booths. 65,000 calls were made to see, hey, tell us where you were that day. And one of the calls was to Kevin Costner.
Seriously?
Hey, yeah, sorry to bother you, but
wow.
Like Kevin Costner saying, is this heaven? I was in Wichita, but you know. So the diligence from the police was remarkable, and just as the title says, dead end.
Yeah.
You know, some guy that has a goofy gun is able to travel the country and kill a bunch of people and get away with it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And what I love that you're talking about, because we talk about it, but we don't have the experience that you've had. We always talk about how hard the detectives work. And the people that are listening, they don't really have an understanding. When you sit here and you say they made 65,000 phone calls, I hope the people that do watch the show just get an understanding how hard it is and how hard these guys work. I mean, I don't think they get the credit. They should, but I don't think they get it because people don't understand.
So the Terre Haute detective, Brad Rumsey. Yeah. The Terre Haute detective, Brad Rumsey, and I put this in the book. I'm golfing with him one day, and we're talking about other cases he might have handled. And he says, well, I just got back from Florida. And I says, well, what are you doing in Florida? And he goes, oh, I had to get a DNA test from a woman who was killed named Joanne Fox. I said, when was she killed? 1966. Well, wait a minute. I'm not really good at algebra, but this looks like 60 years ago. I said, wait a minute. How old's the guy you took the DNA from? 80. How old was he at the time of the killing? 20.
Holy cow.
You know, and like, again, for Brad, it's like, you know, DNA has changed. Back in the 90s, DNA is semen and saliva. So if you're just shooting somebody in the head and leaving, you're not leaving DNA in saliva. But now they have what's called touch or handler DNA, genealogical DNA, where they're testing parents like they've done now in the Gabby Patino case or the Idaho college murder cases. And at Terre Haute, there was the chance of some touch handler DNA because the only thing missing at one of these scenes was Mick McCown's wallet from Terre Haute was missing. And they don't know if the killer took it or he lost it. The family said he always had his wallet. Where's his wallet? The killer had no interest in money at the store. Why take the wallet? But still, the wallet's missing. And I say to Brad Rumsey, the detective, I said, man, if you only had those pants from 30 years ago to test for DNA.
Yeah.
Brad looks at me. I got him, Bob.
Wow.
I got him in a basement in a box on their way to Florida for testing. So you never know. You never know. The world changes. And just remarkable stories for both of you guys. You know, in Wichita, this case has landed on the lap of Tim Ralph. Tim was a little boy when the BTK killer started in Wichita. And the first killings of the BTK killer were across the street from Tim's house, where a family of 4 was murdered. And Tim had to walk by that house every day. It haunted him.
He lived across the street?
It just haunted him. Nearby. He had to walk down that street to school.
From the Arturos?
And it haunted the Oteros, yes. Yeah. It haunted him for all those years. Well, he grows up, goes to college, becomes a police detective, gets hired back in Wichita. Years go by, people retire, and what case gets landed on his desk? The BTK killer. And to make a long story short, you know, the BTK killer was working through newspapers and like the Zodiac guy, playing with the cops. So clues. He'd leave a cereal box. He'd leave a cereal box on the side of the road because he liked being called a serial killer with an index card in there saying, hey, tell police go to this address, they'll find a body. You know, he wanted the publicity. He wanted, and he reached out on the classifieds one time to the police department in Wichita and said, hey, do you mind if I stop doing classified ads and do something on a floppy disk?
Yep.
And Tim's now got the case, and Tim says, yes, send us whatever you got. A BTK, Dennis Rader. Dennis Rader sends a floppy disk, and Tim takes it to the forensics lab, and they say, this disc only came from one place, the church. Tim goes to the church and said, who could have had access? Only one guy, the church deacon. The deacon of the church, a guy named Dennis Rader.
What
Tim
an
goes
asshole.
through the files and sees there was one witness one time that saw a car drop that cereal box on the side of the road, and the car was a black Chevy Trailblazer.
Yeah.
Tim gets an address of the church deacon. This Dennis Rader goes to his house, and what's parked in the driveway? The black Chevy Trailblazer.
Dennis Rader.
If you're Tim Ralph, all those years and all that frustration, well, the next day he had the SWAT team out. They put Dennis Rader in the back seat of the car. And who's driving him to the police department?
No way.
Tim Ralph.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
You talk about these police detectives.
Incredible. You know what the greatest line I think that we ever heard out of Dennis Rader probably said to Tim, why did you lie to me? about the floppy, because I think he had asked him, can you trace these floppy disks? And they said, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
But that just shows his narcissism.
The profilers were, and the profilers will say these guys aren't so smart. Why are they getting away with murder? You're not going to get an arm or worky gun and kill people in broad daylight. That's the last thing you do in the world.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But here he was out there.
Well, you and Dennis Rader have something in common. You both like to wear women's clothing.
He had to throw something like that in, right? You're lucky it's your day, Tom.
Yeah. We're gonna test the fatherly love right now.
right now. It's the only reason I'm not knocking him off the chair. It's his day. Do you think what's his name? Dan? Is it Dan Hickman or the witness?
Tim Hickman.
Tim Hickman. Do you think he would recognize a picture of the killer at a later age? You think he would?
Unlike Vicki Webb, Tim says it's all about the face. He sees it every night when he lays his head on the pillow. He'll never forget the face.
That poor guy.
He would recognize it in a minute.
That poor guy.
Is this the Cumberbund guy?
No. This is the gentleman that was in the shop right next door.
And saw him going up the hill?
Yeah, Raytown, Kansas, right? Was that what it was? Raytown? Yeah. And I saw on your series is incredible, but I saw his interview when he was saying, and he was crying and he felt that he could have done more, and your heart just breaks when you see this guy, that he's been, struggling with this for 32 years.
He's crying. Al, he's crying 30 years later.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Bob? And we have learned, in dealing with some of these monsters and dealing with some survivors. Like we had a survivor on, Angela Hamel, and she told her story. She lived through David Gore and Fred Waterfield, and they raped this poor woman. And she cried like it happened yesterday. And we're talking 1976.
Every time we talk to her, she cries.
Yeah, about that. So the people out there, they have to realize that, this isn't just one and done. The people are scarred. The victims' families are scarred. The survivors are scarred, and it never goes away. And I really want people to understand that.
I'll tell you who doesn't cry. Matheny doesn't cry, does he?
Matheny, did you say?
Joe Matheny? Is that who you said?
Oh,
he won't cry.
Oh my God! No.
Nothing makes him cry.
No. Same with Ken Bianchi. Same with Arthur Shawcross. All of them. Haddon Clark. All of them. The only reason they would ever cry is for themselves. We've learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're terrible. And what they do, the way they ruin generations, not just one, but generations of families, it's terrible. Are there any leads? Did they have any leads now? I know you had said I don't know if it was in the book or what, one of the interviews, you said that they had a pretty good lead or a pretty strong lead.
The lead is the Brosman video.
Okay.
The Brosman killing. That's the lead. And the police in Terre Haute thought they had enough to go forward with. They didn't know the I-70 connection, but at the time, a murder charge on that particular case, the prosecuting attorney did not think they had enough evidence, so it never went forward. It's still hanging out there. In the years that have gone by, and police look at that Brosman video and say, what's the motive here? He walks into the store. He doesn't have a face guard on. He hasn't got gloves on. He goes back and pulls out some 6-pack of beer, comes to the counter, then takes Brosman around the corner to the back room as close as he can, kills him, and leaves. He doesn't even come back and get his beer. What is the motive here? Oh, it's thrill of the kill again in Terre Haute again, just down the street from Sylvia's where Mick McCown was killed 10 years, 20 years earlier, whatever, 10 years earlier. So police started putting that together, the two and the two. And now they've got a video now because technology has changed. Back in the early 90s, the only security in these stores would be, Al, you would know this, a little bell would ring when you would walk in, but that's it.
Yeah.
Well, now for Brosman, we have cameras. It's as good of a, convenience store killing as you're going to see. That's their lead, and that's their suspect, and they're tying the two together, and they're trying to find people who know this guy. So they play that video in Terre Haute over and over and over on the news, and nobody comes forward. What does that tell police? Tells them he's not from Terre Haute.
He's not from there. Yeah.
It's from out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from out of town. So
And you look at that.
they have a suspect,
Okay.
and the suspect lives in the Midwest, and they believe that he travels the country as a construction worker working for big box stores like a Walmart or a Target or a Kmart doing repair jobs. And that was his travel purposes, perhaps, from these scenes. And they are working hard on that suspect, and that's their best case right now. They await DNA. They're trying to find more people who can identify the Brosman video and try to put two and two together. And, again, we talk about the cops. There's a woman now, as the case has been handled down year after year through detectives for 30 years. The woman in charge right now of the task force in St. Charles, her name is Kelly Rhodes. Kelly has one job, this.
Really?
And you know what? When I first hear that, the public might think, wow, what a waste of time, a waste of taxpayer money. We're paying somebody to do this case that's never going to get solved. You know what? I think it sends a pretty cool message.
Yeah.
I think it sends a pretty darn cool message. No city is giving up on this. So Kelly Rhodes, I'm doing a book tour last January, and I'm in Indianapolis, and I hear him say, hey, St. Charles police are also gonna come here for something today. Bob, you got to leave us. It's a private meeting. You can't be in that. Oh, St. Charles police are coming. Kelly's coming. It's a wintry, icy day in the Midwest in January. Oh, by the way, I'm aware that Kelly is 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
Again, you talk about not giving up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in. If they can do that, then I can keep doing podcasts, and I can keep going to bookstores and book fairs and make appearances. And I've traveled the country doing TV and radio and blogs, and I'm happy to do anything to keep this story alive for those police officers.
You just pretty much, one of the questions was, the detectives are passionate about this case. Tell us what you personally have learned about these men and women. You just did.
Yeah.
Because you can't respect them enough.
You name a city. Yep. Tim Ralph in Wichita. Okay. Brad Rumsey in Terre Haute. You name a city. Kelly Rhodes in St. Charles. One of the detectives that's passed this down over time in St. Charles is a guy named Pat McCarrick. And talk about a grizzled old veteran. Pat McCarrick has the tape of Amy Vest, one of the Texas women killed, has the audio tape as she crawled dying to call 911. He keeps it in his desk. It's not his case.
Really?
He's had numerous bosses tell him, hey, you're working on I-70 today. Come on, move on. Let that go. It's 30 years old. And Pat says, come on in here for a second. Let me play you this tape of this young woman who calls 911 while she's dying. And then you tell me if you want me to get rid of that case. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pat goes to gun shows, corresponds on websites with people that talk about Irma Workies. The Amy Best case is not his case.
That's amazing.
He's still doing it.
And he's still doing it. And that just shows you what these people are like. They're incredible. Yep. They really are. And it's hard work. We talk about that all the time.
Oh, yes.
Hard work. Well, Bob, we really appreciate you coming on. And
absolutely.
Thank you.
What I wanted to tell you is next week we're going to have the two fans on. They really feel that they're going to be able to tell us who it is. What we're going to tell you is no name will be given out to anyone but you and the detectives. You have our word on that. That's going to be kept secret. And let's hope, I mean, if they really do have it, I mean, it would be wonderful for everyone concerned. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you. And I can tell you both that the police have shared with me the name of the suspect.
Okay.
And although I did not name him in the book, if you go back and look at that book and read between the lines somewhere, you will see a name.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions of us as far as where we're at or how we're going about this?
My only question for you guys is enjoy your day today for Tony. I just
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
It's like
go play some
birthday.
Go put Elvis on the speakers, crank it up real loud, and just just appreciate the day, appreciate the moment. Life is not forever for any of us.
That's right.
And to be given the second chance that you guys were given, it's an honor for me to talk with both of you. And again, if somebody from Murder Phone, one of our phoniacs, reads something in this book and makes that phone call, I would venture to say it'll be on the top of your list of the greatest moments we've ever done. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be. It will be.
Thank you both.
And thank you. And thank you for what you do and what you've been doing for a long, long time. And thank you for writing about Jesus Christ. And I think it's fascinating what you just told us. We've been watching The Chosen. You've probably seen it. I think they're doing a really, really good job. And we're going to be reading your books for sure.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody out there does.
Thank you both. It's a pleasure.
Our pleasure. And we'll be in touch, Bob.
Well, everybody, that was awesome.
Yes, it was.
Bob is awesome.
What a great guy.
Holy cow.
Oh, man.
He's a wealth of information.
Yes, he is.
Well, we're going to wrap it for today. So, everybody, take care. Stay safe. I will. For sure. And remember, always walk in the calm after the storm.